1078 officer in need.
What's up, guys? It's Matt from the 1078 Project. Hey, if you're new to the organization, a little bit about us. The 1078 Project is a non-profit organization that's been founded and developed by law enforcement officers who have been involved in critical incidents and officer-involved shootings. Our goal at the 1078 Project is to provide mental, spiritual, and practical support to law enforcement officers as they navigate the difficult times surrounding an officer-involved shooting. With that being said, let's dive into today's episode, and I'll see you on the other side, boys. Today's guest is a former DEA Task Force officer, was a regional drug task force officer for 6 years, an FTO for 21 years, a firearms instructor for 19 years, and a crime scene technician for 10 years, totaling at 26 years of law enforcement experience. So we shouldn't run out of things to talk about today. He's a coworker of mine, an overall good dude. Today's guest is Charlie Niel.
It's kind of how we were brought up with that, you know?
Yeah. And the reality of it is it's going to rear its ugly head at one point or another.
Oh, absolutely.
And your relationships with other people or drinking or whatever the case may be, that's just what happens. You know, it's the expectation that the forefathers of law enforcement put on cops, man, is just unrealistic.
It was up there in expectation, let me tell you.
Yeah, it's unrealistic. There's no way, man. And law enforcement's moving in the direction of like, okay, we experience really bad things all the time. We should probably get guys, you know, help or do a critical incident debrief or do something. But in my opinion, it's going to take private organizations like 1078 and other organizations coming in and stepping in and providing legitimate, culturally competent counselors and therapists in order to really give guys an out, because the world's only getting wilder.
That's very true. Very, very true.
Before we dive into your critical incident, let's talk a little bit about your time at DTF.
Okay.
I think that you may have been in DTF when I first started.
I was. Yep. When you first started, I was in DTF already. Yep.
Guessing, did you go in there quite a while before me, or?
No, I actually went in just a couple months before you started.
Okay, so 2011, 2012
yeah,
time period?
Early 2012, I went in.
What got you interested in the drug unit?
Oh, absolutely nothing.
Really?
Really. You know, Mike Durkee was my best friend, right?
Yeah.
We were always buddies at work, off work. We worked the same shift. We worked zones next to each other. Yeah. He's like, come over here and do this with me. I'm like, I'm too old for that crap already.
Really?
That's how I felt.
I didn't know you didn't have any interest in it.
Really
I always heard you did so well.
I really didn't. And I was like, oh, God. All right, if you're going to beat me into it, Mike, fine. He just kept nagging at me, come try out. So I did.
Really?
And, you know, I got picked for the slot. But, yeah, did I have a big interest in going to do that? Not really.
Really?
I didn't know that. But once I got in there, I'm like, oh, I love this. This is great. This is what I want to do. That's all I want to do.
So run me through, like, what a day in the life of a drug unit guy in
So a day in the life of a drug unit. When we first started, we were the methamphetamine team. That's all we do is methamphetamine labs. We just wanted to look at people who were doing labs. You wanted to find what we called Smurfs at the time, which were people who bought pseudoephedrine and then passed it off to meth cooks, either for meth or for cash, because a box at that time was going for $50 to a dealer. And a lot of the heroin addicts were buying boxes and taking them to dealers.
How much? If you bought a box of pseudo, this is bizarre because when I first got into law enforcement, cooking meth was still a thing, but soon Shake and Bake came, and then shortly after that, Mexican drug cartel meth took everything.
That's true. 2011 was about when Shake and Bake got big out here.
Yeah.
Before that, it had always been Hydrus or Red and Black method, which was, they're both super
the dangerous
nasty
blow up
and
your house.
Yes. And
how much would a box of pseudo make? Like, how much meth could you make from a box of pseudo?
If you get like the box of Wall Act, it'd be like 3.88 grams of Sudafed. And a good cook could get 3.5, 3.1, somewhere 3 to 1, 3.5 grams of meth out of that.
Okay.
It all depends on how good you are at the process and extracting it. Because, once you get done breaking down that pseudo, because everybody's talks about cooking meth, you're not really cooking meth. All you're doing is taking those pills and extracting the pseudoephedrine
that's already
already in them from all the fillers and all that.
Okay, so the method of adding all the other stuff is just a way.
That's just a way to break it down and pull it out of there. Because really all you're doing is, you got to think of it.
Dude, that doesn't seem like very profitable.
You figure meth at that time was going $100 a gram.
$100 a gram.
Yes,
dude.
So that was what home cook was going for then, was $100 a gram. You get 3.5. If you paid $50 per box, you can still make a couple $100 there, and supply yourself.
Really?
Because every cook was an addict. There was not cooks who were not addicts. That was a big driving force of them cooking, was make your own dope, sell a little bit, and
I don't have to pay for mine.
Buy some more.
Yeah.
They weren't making a living at it.
So you guys would hit up those Sudafed listings?
So every day, all 6 of us would come in, and everybody would jump on computers. We'd go to the Inplex log and check all the pseudoephedrine purchases for the last, 24 hours. And we'd go through there and we'd figure out what store. And if we knew the name, we'd be like, oh, I know where he's at. And we'd literally all come up with our best target of the day. And we'd go in the office and talk about it. And be like, pick one name out of the hat. All right, we're going to go here. If that doesn't work, we'll go to the second one here. And that's how we did business every single day. We'd make a plan. You go to that address. Okay, well, they didn't want to cook here tonight. Okay, they're not at this guy's house. Go to the next one.
Were you looking to do like a knock and talk?
You're always looking to do a knock and talk, yeah. The days of warrants weren't really, you didn't have time for all that. Because, you could get a warrant while you're on scene if you had to.
Yeah.
But we got 90% of it through knock and talk.
I remember they would write some search warrants off of like the odors and stuff.
Right.
Like you'd show up, the guy was cooking, and then they'd write a search warrant off the odor.
Right. If you wouldn't come out of the house, a lot of times that would happen. But, with a lot of the methods, if you got that big fumes and that, you do have exigent circumstances at that point, So there's a lot different going in.
So let's just say you found a lab.
Mm-hmm.
You did your knock and talk, you talked to the guy, which that is the coolest part to me, watching the dope unit work, the drug guys work. That was the coolest part to me. It wasn't the finding like the meth lab part of it, or it wasn't finding the dope. It was just watching their interrogation methods, and like that friendliness and the way that like just knowing the terms, knowing the slang, knowing the people involved can take it full circle. And you get confessions. People would be admitting to all kinds of things they didn't have to admit to. That was the coolest part for me.
We had an amazing team of 6 guys too. We all got along really well, especially the first original 6. And we all had our own strengths. Mike, he was a great talker. Yeah. He would talk to him for 3 hours to get in the door, if that's what it took. I mean, I kid you not. Anything it took to get in the door. He would, tell you anything you wanted to hear. And he was a salesman at the door. Before you knew it, you were getting a vacuum cleaner and a meth lab for prison. He literally talked through an apartment door one night for like over an hour. And finally convinced this person to give them their ID, which when we read the name on the ID, because we had no idea who was in there, they had warrants. So we gave, they had felony warrants, so we had probable cause. He got the meth lab too.
What did you guys do with the meth labs? Because they were so dangerous at that point.
Right. We would literally break them all down, into however you had to make them safe. And then we'd store all the chemicals together. Everything would be broke down by its own separate chemical. Put together, we had actual, you ever see the explosion hoods and that, or like they use for chemistry labs and that? We had one of those in the office.
No way.
Yeah, and we would literally sit there and pour the stuff off or put enough base in to make it neutral. And then every so often you had to transport all this stuff to Lincoln County because that was our closest DNR drop-off point.
No way. And what would they do with it?
They would collect it all and dispose of it all. They would incinerate it.
Really?
Yep. But
so did you guys go to like special training in order to be able to handle that stuff?
We all went to Quantico for DEA labs, and that's where all of us went to training for.
Is that where they show you like they had light a lab on fire and stuff?
They didn't light the lab on fire. They showed us how to make meth. Literally, they made meth in the laboratory there, and most of us also went to site safety school there. So you could be a safety officer for all that stuff. And it was a cool class because, you were getting full SCBA, put on the Class B suit, respirator, and all that. It showed you how to go through the buildings. And it was a really neat class.
Yeah, because when you worked in Pacific, I'm guessing you guys just walked in and grabbed the meth lab, took it apart.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
You
get out your blue jeans, and if you're really good, you can go, oh yeah, put over my skirt. Oh yeah, I'm safe now. Here we are. Yeah, that was pretty wild.
Is there any of those stories or any of those any suspects or that stick out to you that
This story is a good one because we got a call for a rollover vehicle accident, and it happened out. God, I can't remember exactly. It was out somewhere west of St. Charles, but very western part. And it was off some little deserted road. I can't even remember what the road was now. But we were in Illinois playing golf. And we're driving madmen to get there, right? And one of us had to stop by the office, get all the gear, because they said they had an active anhydrous leak on scene. They could smell it. And we got there, and it was a stolen truck out of Indiana that had rolled over. And he's got a big, barbecue, the propane tank. And it's leaking, and, all right, well, what are we going to do? We can't transport it leaking. So down the hill's a ravine, right? Anhydrous is attracted to water. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
It releases it, goes right to water. And, all right, who wants to carry it down there and shoot it? I'm like, oh, me. I'm in full respirator gear, trying to aim the AR-15. And meanwhile, we got the fire department up the hill spraying water all over me and the tank, to absorb the anhydrous when it goes. Well, meanwhile, Mike's up there and he's videotaping the whole thing. And it was the coolest video because I'm down there, and they got this big spacesuit on, and I whack that thing, and it, boom, big cloud. Did you see it go right to the water? Just disappear.
Did you guys ever sit on obviously anhydrous is used as a farming chemical, right?
Right.
Did they had you don't really see it very much anymore, but you used to see giant tanks on.
You still do in the farm fields.
Yeah.
But it was dangerous to get, and it was hard to come by. Stealing that stuff isn't easy.
Yeah.
When I was in Pacific more, that was a very big thing. We had an ice company in town, and they had a lot of thefts from that place because they had anhydrous on site.
Really?
And a lot of the farms out in Franklin County and that would get hit. But by the time I got in the drug unit, shake and bake had taken over, and you rarely found anhydrous.
That's the lithium method.
That's what you do it in the little soda bottle. You a 20-ounce soda bottle. You're gonna get a cold. Well, I don't want to explain to everybody how to make meth here, but you're gonna throw some different stuff in there, and then you gotta shake it and burp that bottle all the time because the bottle will expand from the pressure. That's what they call burp from the bottle. But you gotta sit there and shake it the whole time back and forth. So
because that lithium
heats,
lithium
would get to the edge and burn a hole in the bottle. Then you got a flamethrower.
I've seen a couple videos of that.
Yeah.
So that's why you have to keep shaking it.
That's why
you don't want the lithium
to stick on the edge and burn through the bottle.
Really?
Yep. That's the whole reason right there. Because if you don't do it, you wind up. We had one out in rural part of Wentzville, and it all started. We got a call because somebody had been dropped off the hospital out there with horrible burns to the bottom of their legs and feet. Got there, talked to her, found out she was at a meth lab, and the guy screwed it up and got the lithium stuck, and it flamed through everywhere and went all over the barn, and the barn burned down, and fire was on scene.
No way. Was that more productive than?
Oh no, very, very. You could do a lot more with anhydrous. You could take 5 or 6 boxes, to even 10 if you wanted to, and make it all at one time. With the shake and bake, you're going to do 1 box at a time usually. So you're only making a little bit of meth.
Is that transition still? So you said if you had 3.5 grams, it'd make you 3.1 or?
Yeah, that's very common.
Okay, so shake and bake was pretty similar?
Yeah, shake and bake's exactly the same extraction process as anhydrous. Once you just do your chemical reaction in that little bottle instead of a big vessel.
Okay.
So otherwise, you're making the same kind of process. It still uses anhydrous and all that, but just you get it from a different form, and you make it a different way. So that's, and you're making it on a small scale, much less a
How did that
scale.
change the way that you guys investigated things?
It actually made it easier.
Really?
They were really easy to track because you had to get rid of all that stuff.
Trash
A lot
pulls.
of more, yeah. We did more trash pulls you can count. I mean, if you talk about you want to see maggots and everything gross in the world, I don't think any of us didn't get maggots in the mouth at least once.
Oh.
I still got the scar from the glass. I picked up a bag of trash one night, picked it up, and there was glass went through and went right through my arm.
No way.
Yeah, it took like 7 stitches.
Holy cow.
But yeah, we did a lot of trash pulls. We were writing probably 3 or 4 search warrants a week on trash pulls alone.
Really?
Yeah, so we did a lot of that because it was so easy back then because you had to cut the
target house,
open,
yeah.
just one little item they would
There's
use.
so many remnants.
Yeah, there were so many remnants you couldn't get rid of them all. Or they'd take them all out somewhere and dump them. And then we'd have what's called a dump site lab. We'd have to go out there and clean that up. And I had one in O'Fallon, and the guy left his medical paperwork from the hospital in the dump pile. Using meth doesn't create rational thought.
Yeah,
which was, a
not.
good thing for us, but,
So were the prosecutors really supportive of you? Because I know they enhanced like all the penalties surrounding meth and meth making.
St. Charles County was amazing. I mean, everybody we caught was getting some kind of prison time.
Yeah.
If you were caught manufacturing, they were throwing the hammer at you.
Okay.
And usually it would be 5 years your first. If they got you a second, you're getting 10. And there was a lot of guys who would get 5, be out in 3. I had certain people I put a case on 3 or 4 times.
Really?
Yes, and during my time there.
And how long were you in like the regional DTF?
Well, let's see. I started the regional DTF in early 12. Oh, yeah, I'll go to that real quick. This is the progression of meth and how fast the labs went.
Yeah.
The year before I got there, they had done like 112 labs.
Yeah.
My first year there, we did 123.
Oh my gosh.
And the next year we did 165. And we're like, oh my God, we're running ragged because we were going out like almost every night. You've got to figure 165 labs, that takes only 6 guys. You're moving all the time. And plus we were handling labs for a lot of the North County munis at that time who didn't want to call St. Louis County.
Really?
Yeah, so we were doing like Bridgeton and Hazelwood and Florissant. And before they had their own guys, we took care of it all for them. They'd find a lab, we'd go out and process it and, collect it all. And then off of the 165, it fell off a little bit. It's like 144 again, I think it was. And the next year, it just almost, went in half. We were like 65 labs. And just all of a sudden, ice. Ice was taking over big time.
Yeah.
It always been, ice wasn't as popular because it wasn't as pure as homemade meth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the draw was. The homemade meth was 100% pure. Where you're getting Mexican ice, when I first started police work, it was like 50% pure. And by the time of
Dude, those super labs,
like
man.
15, it was making 90 to 100%.
Yeah, we with my first dog, we stopped a car that was related to the drug cartel on one of the highways, and we found a boatload of meth, man. I was like pulling.
Yeah, I remember
I was pulling bags out, and there were crystals in these things. They're like gallon bags, like big sandwich bags.
I remember you did one for us when you had your first dog.
It was like the crystals were like this big, man. They're
Yeah.
huge.
Yep, that's when they used to use the old drying method in the containers. Yeah,
Yeah, it was like nothing I'd ever seen before. I'm like, what?
Wow.
I don't even know if this is real. Like this
Exactly.
looks like some kind
Is
of
this fake?
crystal
Is-
you'd
yeah.
put on yourself to like cleanse yourself. And this thing's huge.
You're like, is this rock candy? What is this?
It's insane. Yeah, I started to work with you guys a lot, more towards like your end of the time in DTF.
DTF,
But
yeah.
when I got my first dog, I worked with DTF a lot. We did a lot of stuff with DTF.
Yep.
And it was like that influx of Mexican meth. You like lost all of the manufacturers, and
Right.
everybody just went to
And we
buying.
went
You
down
could
to
get meth
chasing down
so cheap.
couriers and everything else,
Yeah.
dealers. So, because literally meth went from $100 a gram overnight to like $50 a gram
Yeah,
for the ice. And, obviously nobody's going to pay $100 when you get it for $50.
yeah. It totally like just killed off.
Yeah.
All dirt meth, like homemade meth.
It was, what do you want to catch? A Class A felony for manufacturing or a Class C for possession?
Yeah.
That's what it came down to.
It's so crazy, that progression, though, because, they put so much legislation and so much effort and so many investigators towards ending.
Right.
Because, like, at that point, O'Fallon, St. Charles County was still a relatively rural area, so it was getting hit pretty hard with meth. And
Oh, yeah.
they put so much effort into it, and then overnight it's just gone.
Yep, it's true. We went from being overworked to having nothing to do.
Really?
We actually transitioned after that 65. We went down even like lower. I think we were down in the 30s the next year. And we actually started transitioning to be more of a street team where you just went out and did whatever.
Yeah.
You know, heroin, meth, didn't matter, instead of just a basic lab team, you know.
Yeah.
So we just kind of would support the buy-side guys, you know, who would go out and would support them by getting, you know, people for them to flip for them. And
yeah, the dope game is forever changing. It's always the methods and
oh yeah,
the operations are always changing. Was that the most enjoyable time of your career?
Yeah, I think it was. It really was, we had great bosses at DTF at that time, and they let us, you know, pretty much go out and do what we wanted.
Was Fagans in DTF?
He was. He got out right before I went in.
Okay. Yeah,
because he went to DEA, and I think got his spot after that.
Yeah. What did you do at DEA?
DEA, we were just same thing, just doing different investigations. It's just a different world because they don't do knock and talks. They don't, you know, push the envelope quite like we do. It's a lot more slow, drawn out investigation, which was neat to learn, you know. But the pace wasn't there. You know, there was a lot of office time, and I was like, oh, man, I want to change from going running, gunning every day to, okay, I guess we'll sit here and type this super long warrant.
Yeah. Yeah, and like getting up on phones and like all that whole process is like, man, that doesn't.
And all the
call
hours
me when it's all done.
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, all the hours you spend manning that phone's the worst.
Yeah.
Transcribing every phone call and sitting there all night, you know, that's hard work.
Call me when it's done, and we'll go get the guy.
Exactly.
Till then.
You know, DEA is a lot more cautious. You had to have ops plans for everything you did. I don't care if you're going to sit on a house. You had to have an ops plan for it.
Really?
You know, yeah. Didn't matter what it was.
Just to do surveillance?
Mm-hmm. They didn't care if it had to be under your case number, because every time you'd start a case, you'd have to start a case number, and everything went under that from that point on.
Really?
And your first thing you did was try to identify a target and make a sheet for him, and there you go. That's your case.
Was it less enjoyable there?
It was. It was, just because of the fact that I think also I was getting done with the being called out nonstop.
Yeah.
You know, because we ran those years in DTF. And
how'd you and your wife manage that?
It was hard because we had a newborn at the time.
No
while
way.
I was in DTF. I get you. Yeah.
Oh.
So she was a single mom damn near, because all the stuff I was running out on. Yeah. I would literally get home a lot of nights. We'd catch an hour of sleep, phone would ring, we'd be back off. It may not be back till, I mean, we worked 29 hours straight one time.
How'd you guys manage it? How'd you manage your relationship?
I think I have an amazing wife who put up with a lot of crap.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I think she was really good at putting up with me. And, you know, she got a really, really strong, and the incident we're going to talk about a little bit, that was a month before we got married.
No way.
Yeah. So
our wedding was big introduction.
She got a huge introduction into the world of policing. So that kind of made a big change. And
yeah, the wife behind the scenes, man, makes the cop for sure. Yeah, Kate has
without
put
her,
up with
I'd probably
so
be
much.
on top of the KFC bucket already, spinning around with my rifle, you know.
Yeah. FTO, did you enjoy that?
I loved being a field training officer.
Really?
I really did, yeah. And I was fortunate to do it at O'Fallon in a time when we were so busy. I literally trained 11 to 12 months one year.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And, you know, but I enjoyed it at the time and really.
You don't want to break?
I kind of did, but at the same time, you know, they needed someone to do it, and I was there. So I've always kind of been, whatever they need, I'll do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I became a crime scene tech.
Yeah.
We need somebody to do this just till we find somebody who's really interested. Oh, okay, I've had all these classes. Pacific was going to make me a detective. Even though I was really green, they were going to try to make me a detective, and I was not into that at all. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
But they sent me to all these crime scene classes and that, and so I had a lot of training in that stuff. And so I'm like, okay, I'll do it. Just till you find somebody else. Well, that turned into a 10-year ordeal.
Yeah. Did you start your firearms stuff at O'Fallon, or did you start it at Pacific?
I started at O'Fallon. Yep.
Okay. Because I know that's something that you're huge into.
Yeah, I'm a huge firearms enthusiast, so I shoot a lot.
All right, give me your number one carry. If I had to go buy a gun right now and an optic, what would I buy?
You're going to buy a Glock 43X with a hollow sun. No doubt.
Really?
Yep, buy a Glock 43X with a hollow sun on it.
How much is a Holosun?
They're about 3.5 right now. They're not
Okay,
bad.
so that's not bad.
Yeah, they got the newer model, which is like 4, but there's nothing wrong with the 407K, actually. Is the model number.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you know all of that?
I read firearms. I've been reading since my stepdad in 1981 had a prescription to guns and ammo. I did not get rid of them till I moved up here.
Really?
I kept those forever.
So you've just been obsessed with firearms
obsessed, forever? Yeah. I'll never forget the first time I looked at a guns and ammo. On the cover was a Smith & Wesson model 639, and I said, that's going to be my first gun. The day I turned 21, I went out and bought a Smith & Wesson model 39, which I still have to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
What's your everyday carry?
Glock 43X with a hollow sun.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like your everyday, you carry it all over the place.
Yep.
It seems like that's the most reasonable gun to use as a concealed carry
gun. If I
gun.
want something smaller, like say you're in shorts of that, I have a Ruger LCP Max, which is a 13 plus 1 380. So, or I'm sorry, 12 plus 1, 13 round overall,
really?
380. And it's super tiny.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest person in the world, so I have to have tiny guns.
And yeah, I've expanded over the years, but I get that.
Yeah.
Because when I started, we used to carry like Glock 27s off duty, and let me tell you, when I was like 160 pounds, I wasn't hiding anything.
Yeah, yeah. I have that problem with everything. One of my off duties is a XDS. Or XD, actually. It's not an XDS. And that thing's so hard to carry off duty.
They're like carrying a brick
inside
your
shorts. It's like that
shorts.
thick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was the Glock 27's problem, because it's just like the 17 we carry now, same thickness.
It's not like the gun wasn't too big. It was just the thickness of the gun. You couldn't conceal it on your person anywhere.
Right. That's what I had all that problem with. I tried appendix. I tried, four-log. I tried everything, Yeah.
I think I'm going to get a 43X.
Yeah.
That's going to be my next
I highly
purchase.
recommend it. They're great guns.
When we get off of here, text me what optic I'm supposed to buy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into your critical incident, and you can kind of talk me through what happened.
All right. So it's a typical day in O'Fallon, June 1st, 2009. I was working Zone 7, and I forgot who was in 6. Because I know Mike was in 8. Which is weird, because we always worked north. We were always north cars.
Really?
Yeah. And for some reason that day we were down south. I don't know if they'd thrown one of those weird, somebody else got to pick in the middle of us and took one of our zones or whatever it was. And I've had my typical morning. It's early. Got my QT soda, drinking a lot. And I just had talked to Mike, and I think we were still on Nextels back then. Push to talk. Yeah. And I'm like, I said, okay, I'll meet you somewhere. I think we were going to run radar on the highway or something. And because we used to do that a lot. Use the Nextels, and one sit in the overpass and one be on the ramp and take turns, picking cars off on the highway. And I text her, say, I got to run to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. Well, then we get the call. We have to respond to the elementary school on Mexico Road and Rock Creek Elementary, and an employee there, her boyfriend and father of her children, longtime boyfriend, had called her and said, I'm coming to kill you and the kids. And he fired a gun off in the phone.
Interesting.
Yeah. So apparently the day before, which we didn't know that till we got there and started listening to the story, he had a big domestic with her. She said, I'm done with you. I'm not putting up with your drinking and that no more. You're out. You're gone. He immediately proceeded to somehow get out to Warrenton to his brother's house. He stole his brother's car and his brother's gun. So, she's like, he's probably at the house. She thought when he called, he's at the house. So we get together and we all go to the house, we search the house. He's not there. And we talked to her and said, where do you think he is? How do we get a hold of him? Where's he going to be? And she's like, I don't know where he is, have no idea. None. Okay. Well, she goes, but if I call him, he'll come right here.
Really?
I'm like, oh, okay. So I remember Mike and I asking her the questions, what's he going to be like if he gets here? Is he going to fight? Is he going to run? What's his demeanor? She's like, oh, no, he's totally nonviolent. He's all talk. He's just going to, if he sees cops, he's going to try to run, and that's at the most. He's not going to fight you guys. He's not going to do any of that. It's not him. Okay, all right. So talking with the supervisors on the scene, we come up with this plan and, need a couple of volunteers to stay in the house while she calls him. Me and Mike volunteer. And so we come up with this great plan that she's going to call him, and he's going to be by the rear sliding door in a bedroom. I'm going to be by the front door in the other bedroom. And, when he comes in, we're going to rush out and grab him, right? So I had back when we used to carry our own personal AR-15s, I had mine. And I'm like, all right, if I got a hands-on with this guy, because that's what we're thinking, run or hands-on. Mm-hmm. And if we're running, it's going to be me, not Mike.
Yeah.
He's a big boy.
Although when that train gets going, dude, when that train gets going, that boy can move.
Turn a corner, he's gone. He just keeps going straight like Kool-Aid Man.
Yeah. That's funny.
So I'm like, all right. I talked to him. I said, okay, I'm going to take the AR. I'm going to download it. I'm going to stash it under the bed in here and put the mag in my pocket. So it's unloaded, out of the way. We're going to grab this dude, be over. All right, so she calls him and says, I want to come over, I want you to talk, We had no idea he was in the apartment right next door. Okay, here it is, June 1st.
How did he get in the apartment next door?
He knew the guy there, and the guy was hiding him out.
Really?
Yeah. So no sooner did she hang up the phone, he's coming in the rear sliding door. There's a big deck, and all the apartments there had sliding doors. He's coming in that sliding door. It's June 1st. It's like 90 degrees outside. He's in a Carhartt hoodie jacket with the hood up and comes in shooting. His first 2 shots were at her. Okay? Just immediately, boom, boom, starts shooting at her. And Mike come out of the first bedroom, engaged him, fired 2 rounds, did not strike him. And by the time I even react, because, you hear gunfire, you're starting moving, but it felt like slow motion trying to get there. Yeah. And I remember coming out, and I had the guy dead to rights, and I watch him. He shoots through the wall into the bedroom where Mike is. He's putting rounds through the wall. And I'm like, oh, my God. I'm thinking, my partner's hit, oh, my God, I got to stop this quick. What do? Mr. Captain like to shoot? Oh, yeah. I panicked. I did. I yanked the trigger so hard, dead on straight, but pulled it way right and hit the light switch on the wall next to him.
Did you know you did?
Oh, absolutely. Knew it when I pulled the trigger that I screwed it up.
Really?
Yeah, totally. And after that, he started to point the gun towards me. I'll never forget, he come around with the gun towards me, and I think in my mind it was jammed. Because I remember coming up, and I saw that flinch of his hand, and then he ducked out the sliding door and started to run. And the next shot I fired it went right through the 2 metal frames of the sliding door, went right through both of them, and I hit him in the arm. I didn't know I hit him in the arm at the time. I had no idea. But I knew the shot was pretty close to him, if not on him. And right before he was out of view, I fired a 3rd shot. And I thought I got him with that one, but I wasn't positive. And I got to the sliding door, and I got one more shot as he was starting to go down the stairs. And that was the one that ended it.
Really?
Yeah. And it was so wild because when we tracked, like I said, I hit the light switch, hit the door. The next time I was headhunting. Yeah. Which I don't know why, but I remember headhunting because maybe that was the best view I had of him. I don't know the reasoning behind it. But I had hit the 4x4 post that supported the next awning up, and it was right in the middle of the post. And the last one caught him in the head.
Really?
Yeah.
So First off, the thing that, once you go through one of these things, man, the world does slow down significantly.
It does. I remember.
If I could access that lizard part of my brain, I'd be a professional athlete.
Oh, absolutely. Because I remember shell cases. I didn't know how many rounds I fired at first, but I remember counting shell casings going over my head.
No way.
Yes. I remember 1, okay, 2. And that was when we had 40 caliber pistols, 12-round mags, and I'm keeping count with these shell casings.
Those are the SIGs?
Yeah, those were the SIGs. We had 229s then. We just went to the 229.
It's hard not to pull with those things. The trigger pull is so
terrible.
long.
Terrible trigger pull. Very reliable guns. Yeah. Terrible trigger.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember that. And I remember seeing Mike come out of the room, after I fired that last shot, and I'm holding gun on him, and he come out to the deck to join me. We're yelling at him, which obviously he's not moving. But we just stayed guns on. I remember grabbing my radio, and I called to dispatch, shots fired, one subject down. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear any response. And I'm like, I looked down, and apparently when I jerked, I pulled everything loose and shut my walkie down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I turned it back on real quick and called it again. And, they responded, and I remember staying guns up on him until everybody kind of got there and surrounded him. And I remember a couple of guys coming up there and grabbing him, putting him in cuffs, and he hadn't moved the whole time, And I remember my first reaction. My first reaction was I was sure Mike was hit. I really was. He's got a line of drywall dust on his little bald, big old head, and it's just right where the bullet went right by, just left a line of dust where it came through the wall.
No way.
And I remember my expression was, and don't want to use profanity.
No, go ahead. I don't care.
I'm like, do you have any fucking holes in you? And I holstered my gun, and I started immediately blood sweeping him everywhere, Man. Because I was so worried. You
guys are pretty close friends then, right?
Oh, we're always been close friends, yeah.
Golly.
Almost since the day he started in O'Fallon, we've been inseparable. So,
holy cow!
He'll be my friend till the day I die. So,
jeez Louise,
he's like another brother to me. He really is.
Yeah. So he was able to respond so quickly because he was in the apartment right next door.
Apartment right next door.
And she just didn't know that.
She had no idea. We had no idea. And like I said, his first two shots were at her.
He didn't realize you guys were there?
He had no idea we were in that apartment. None.
Really?
Until he saw Mike. And that's when he, Mike fired at him, and he fired back at Mike. And then he just, I guess, was putting rounds to the wall,
trying to track him.
Trying to go where Mike, was probably hiding. And he got real close.
My
goodness. I'll just never forget seeing that line of drywall dust across his head. I mean, that's, how close the bullet's got to be. It's got to be within a half inch of you, I would think, at least to leave that kind of line.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was
probably
a perfect
closer.
straight line. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And I was so worried he was hit, and that was my biggest concern. Didn't care about me. Did I really care about her? No. I cared about Mike at that point, because that's my best friend,
Yeah.
And after that calmed down, then we, went and checked on her and all that stuff. But we knew she was pretty much fine because she was screaming the whole time. She was just screaming.
How was she reacting?
Just screaming. I remember her just screaming in the background. Nothing intelligent. Screaming. And I'm like, oh, my God. All right. Are you fine? Yeah, you're fine. Okay, great.
What was her demeanor towards you guys? Was she mad at you guys?
Well, that's another great story, okay, because that day she couldn't thank us enough. She couldn't believe he came in and tried to kill her. And a couple days later, it might have been within a day, there was an article in the paper, she said how O'Fallon officers saved her life. We were her hero. If without her, us, she'd be dead. So a week later, new article came out. O'Fallon officers put my life in jeopardy. They used me as bait and almost got me killed. So
really?
Apparently I think there was probably some legal representation talk in the middle of there.
Yeah, that was an attorney for sure.
It was funny how a week later it was a totally different story. We went from heroes to zeros,
Yeah. What happened after the shooting portion? So guys taken into custody.
Right. After shooting, you have to go to the hospital, right? And, they want to P-test us. And O'Fallon hadn't had a shooting at that time in a long time. Lieutenant Balcom, 15 years before, was in the last shooting in O'Fallon involved.
Really?
So it'd been 15 years, and everybody doesn't know what to do.
Now they're happening back to back to back.
Yeah, exactly. Now you see how much more prevalent they are. But you could tell nobody knew what to do. Even the brass was there, and it was really kind of chaotic. I guess we should take your guns. Oh, okay. All right, great. And I remember, I think he was lieutenant at the time, Nesky, who was later our chief. Yeah. He comes up and he says, I got to take your gun. I'm like, great. I said, I fired 4 rounds. He's like, how do you know you fired 4? I'm like, I counted the shell cases over my head. I'll never forget it.
That's
just
so
plain
insane. As day. It's just such a detail. And when people that haven't been through these, when you go through when you go through a shooting, I remember this. And as I was moving behind the car during mine, I was thinking to myself, whoa, man, you're way calmer than I thought you'd be. And when I tell people that, they're like, no way, dude. I'm like, I don't know why. I can't explain it, but the world slows down and your brain accesses a portion of it that you didn't know it had.
Exactly. Your actions seem to speed. You know you're going fast, but in your mind it's just like slow-mo everything.
Yeah.
You feel like you're just going real slow up to target and everything. It's like, wow, that is so weird.
Yeah.
And then the shell casings, that still blows my mind to this day because I can still visualize what I saw as they were flying over my head, which I couldn't see a shell casing fly out of my gun on a normal day if I tried to.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how much more information your brain and your body can process that we just don't realize. So you go to the hospital. Did they enter?
So here's the story. Okay, right? I'm about to get married right at that time, and our wedding is set for July 10th, so we're just barely over a month away, right? And I called my wife, who's at work, and I'm like, "Hey, Mike and I were just in a shooting." She knows who Mike was, of course, my best friend. And I'm like, "Mike and I were just in a shooting. We're both fine. Gotta go to the hospital. All right, talk to you later. Bye."
I did the same thing.
And apparently, in her mind, what I did was not near enough information to please her.
Yeah. I did the exact same thing.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I picked up the phone. I started to cry when I talked to my wife, to be 100% honest. I was like, it was like I went out of police officer mode and went to like husband and dad mode. And I was trying to like spit out, everything that had happened.
Yeah.
And she had very few questions. And I had very few answers or words. I just said, "Hey, I just want to let you know I'm okay. I got into an officer-involved shooting. I'm going to the hospital."
Yep.
And she's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay."
Yeah, I didn't even wait for a question.
She's like, "Are they okay?" And I was like, "No, they're not okay."
Yep. I didn't wait for a single question. I literally said those exact words and clicked the phone off.
How long you had been together at that point?
We'd been together 6 months.
6
Well,
months.
not even 6 months because we were married 9 months. So yeah, we've been together about 6 months, 7 months.
Woo.
Yeah, 6-7 months. So we're in there. So yeah, we met. We really hit it off great. We were married 9 months. So
did she come up to the hospital or anything?
She did. She left work, came to the hospital, and she was a wreck. Now you remember that part of the story when I told you about how I was going to use the restroom. So here we are at the hospital, and the first thing they're like, "You got to take a pee test." I'm like, "Great, bring it on. I got to go right now." I had to go before this incident. Now after the shootout, I'm about to pee my pants here. And I'll never forget because the person wasn't there. They were using some third-party company who had to respond to the hospital. My wife gets there, and she's like, hugs me, and like, "Oh, you okay? Everything fine?" I'm like, "Yeah," I said, "I'm fine. I told you I was good." She's like, "You didn't tell me anything." I'm like, "I told you enough."
Yeah.
And then she runs to the restroom, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me? I am sitting here doing the happy dance." And I had to hold it for like an hour and a half because I was so worried if I went, it was going to be like for the whole day because I was emotionally drained. I'm like,
yeah. It took 4 hours for the guy who did our drug test.
Ours was like 2.5. Yeah,
it took forever.
It was crazy long.
Did they interview you that night, or did they allow you to get some sleep cycles in? Or
I remember Sergeant Doug Castile had called the FOP attorney. He called me while I was in the hospital room, and he's like, "Hey, FOP attorney's on the way. Don't say anything until you get there." "Okay, thanks. Bye." Just real quick. I'm like, "Okay, thanks. That's cool." So attorney got there. They did not interview us that day. I remember Mike's brother showed up, who was a U.S. Marshal at the time. And he comes in, he's like Mike. He's another big wrecking crew, like the white man coming through the wall. He's like, "Where are they? I got guns for them."
I got guns.
He goes, "They don't have their guns." Because O'Fallon wasn't really prepared to rearm us. And it kind of clicked in someone's head when he got there and said, "I have guns for them. Hey, why don't we get somebody at the station to grab some more guns and bring them down guns so they don't have to be unarmed down here."
Yeah. That's a big thing now, is making sure cops get back and like they get their gun, they get to feel comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Because that was a big thing for me. I was like, I felt
it's so awkward giving it
out of
away.
Water. You walk on the empty holster.
Yeah.
I hadn't done that since I was in Pacific, and I left my gun in the locker in St. Clair getting a prisoner.
Yeah, we've all done that. But it feels weird to give your gun away.
It does. It feels really weird.
Did they offer you guys any services or help? Or
they did. We had to go. Here's how our entire plan was. At that time, the O'Fallon policy was you got 7 days off. Okay? And literally, we had the shooting. The next day, we had to come and do the walkthrough with detectives, and tell them how everything went down.
Was it our detectives? Or
It was our detectives, which was really weird. Yeah. So it was just our detectives out there telling them what happened. And then the next day we had to go see the psychiatrist. You know, it was whoever they appointed. And that took about 12 minutes. You know, I was in there a good 12 minutes. You okay? Yeah, I'm sure. Great. Okay.
Yeah,
see ya.
It's an absolute joke.
It really was. I'm like, okay, that sounds perfect, you know? And
hey, how much are you thinking about it? I don't know. Not that much.
I said, well, okay, at least the hospital goes, hey, you want something to help you sleep? Yeah, I'll take it in case I need it. Sure.
Yeah.
But that's about the highest help level we got.
Yeah.
Because literally that guy was like, are you okay? Yeah, you having bad dreams? No, not last night. But bourbon might have helped. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did after the night of. Went to Mike's house. We all got together. We had our little hug session and, you know, talked to each other and had a few drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was it. That was our help. Because Thursday I had to write the report.
You wrote it?
Yeah, I wrote the report. And I had to send it to the FOP attorney and get them, you know, to look at it. And he's like, yep, great, send it in.
Yeah.
And Friday I turned in the report and, you know.
So you wrote the actual report for what happened?
Yeah, I did.
Did you give a verbal statement to detectives or did you give a written statement?
No, never gave a verbal. Okay. No. We gave a kind of a quick synopsis of what happened to, you know, our lieutenants and sergeants and everybody else was there because the whole world was there.
How quickly was it? Did it get reviewed and cleared by the PA's office relatively fast?
Yeah, it was less than, I want to say it was that same Friday I turned it in.
Really?
If I recall, because we were back on the road the next Monday.
I feel like there's like a middle ground. I was off for like 4 weeks. And I feel like there was a middle ground between having 4 weeks off and then having like 7 days.
Well,
like somewhere in the middle there is probably the best overall practice.
Me and Mike both complained about that because we had zero time to be down, process. We had something to do every single day, you know. So we complained about that, and they actually did change our policy because of that to 2 weeks.
So, but you guys didn't get any more time off?
No, we didn't get any more time off.
Like, we'll change it.
I was literally back on the road Monday, and I actually had to pull my gun on someone else on Monday.
How was that?
I got a call for a person who was suicidal. I get to the address. The kid's in the front yard, I say kid, he's probably like 17, 18. And he's got a big old butcher knife. And he stops, he turns, he looks at me, and he starts to come towards me. And I apparently had that look in my eye. I said, I remember my finger was on the trigger again. I'm like, this is crazy. This cannot be happening to me. And he got literally, I would say 10 yards. I let him get way closer than I should have. And I said, I'm going to kill you right now. That was my exact words. I'm going to kill you. And he stopped, looked at me, and dropped the knife.
Did you let him get closer to you because you're like, man, I don't want to go through this again?
I did not want to go through that shooting again. You know, I was like, I'm going to give every second I can to de-escalate this.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I did not want to pull the trigger my first day back. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And that stuck with me probably even more than the shooting just because you're like, man, do I want to go through that again?
Yeah.
Because I did what I had to do to protect my partner, you know. I didn't bother me.
Dude, I couldn't feel that statement anymore.
Yeah.
What you just said, I couldn't feel anymore.
I did it to protect my partner and my friend. And I would do it for anybody wearing that uniform, you know. It's like, you're all my partners, you know. Everybody is. I would be the first one back in there today, you know. You ask for a volunteer, I'm still going to volunteer.
Yeah.
You know, that's just how I am.
That thought process of like, you start to think to yourself like, man, was it all worth it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly, right. And, you know, in my mind, it 100% was justified in every way because Mike walked away.
It was 100% justified because a dude came in with a gun.
Well, true. But, yeah, exactly. But, I mean, you know, everything I did was justified in my mind because Mike walked away. And, she walked away too. Great.
Yeah.
Added side bonus.
Yeah, she kind of, from what I understand, she kind of threw you guys down the river.
She did eventually, you know, but she
probably got payday.
She was fishing. Yeah. You know, that's fine. It is what it is on that.
Was it difficult for you to go back to work?
It was. Being only a couple days, you know, and not having much downtime, I did not want to be there.
Yeah.
I knew that when I showed up that day. I'm like, I can't believe I'm back out here already.
You're just anxious?
Yeah, very. Very nervous, very anxious, you know, and just, you know, uneasy. You're just on edge.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not a really good way to do your job.
Definitely not.
No.
Did you ever see any counselors or do any
No, not till many years later.
Did you revisit those things?
Yeah, I think I revisited a lot of things that happened in my police career, and it led me personally to have a lot of anger, and I started taking that anger out at home, which is the last place you want to take that out at.
Yeah.
And I had to go, see somebody and get help.
Yeah.
Because that's,
Well, kudos to you for doing it, though, man.
Right.
And, I don't say that. I say that 100%. I say that, like, from the bottom of my heart, because there's so many dudes that can't check their ego.
Right.
Like, you were like, something's going on here. I need to fix myself.
My wife helped me check that ego, too.
Yeah, but even so, man, you yielded to the people that you trust, and the statistics of police suicide are insane.
Oh, I know.
They're saying that the number that you get off of, like, Blue Help, times it by 5, and that's, like, actually how many police officers kill themselves every year. But it's because we're our own worst enemy, man.
We are.
It's like we don't go get help.
Everything up. We gotta be tougher than that.
Yeah, and I was just as guilty after my shooting. It's like, I'm fine. Now I'm seeing a counselor, and I'm gonna do. I've done EMDR, and like there's certain steps that I feel like I need to take for myself,
right?
But also certain steps that I feel like I need to take for my family.
Yeah.
To ensure that it's not 10 years down the road and I'm freaking out, yelling at my kids, or losing my patience with my wife because I never addressed the things.
Exactly. That's really the root of the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. She ain't bothering you at all, but everything else is.
Yeah. Yep. Or I just don't have any patience. I don't have any. My bucket's full to the brim.
Right.
And the next little thing that happens causes me to go off the hinges.
Yep.
And we see it so often.
Oh yeah, that was completely me. My bucket was full. I'd already at that time been in 20 years almost on the job, and it was just.
It's impossible not for your bucket to be full after 20 years. Yeah. They're just even the officer involved shooting, but just the regular things.
Absolutely.
Performing CPR on a baby, finding a dead 4-year-old girl, like just seeing a guy get hit by a semi truck, It's all the things that happen throughout our careers, the amount of suicides that we see, the amount of death we see in general, the bad car accidents.
Absolutely.
It's like, if we don't, at some point you got to take an exhale, you can't keep inhaling nonsense.
That's good that you said talk about bad car accidents. When I was in Pacific, we had 44 running through there, and I worked 7 fatalities in a week.
Are you serious?
I kid you not.
7 different fatalities?
Yeah, 7 different fatality accidents. Yeah.
God.
And one of them was a whole family, except for a 13-year-old boy.
Oh, man.
It was terrible. He was the only one seat belted in properly and ran under the back of a semi, and, it was horrible.
Oh.
And, it was – we had another baby who, was involved in the accident and, ended up not making it. And, God, they had to fly him to Children's. And, you see so many bad things. You're like, this is crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, dude. Yeah. It's crazy that, like you said, we put that expectation on ourselves at the very beginning. It's like you're supposed to see all these things, and you're supposed to be fine.
Right.
It's
okay.
That. It's okay.
Sometimes even you make yourself forget, and then you talk about it like we're talking, and it's like, it comes back to me. It's like, I just had mental pictures of that scene, and it's like,
yeah, dude. It's a bizarre life that we live. The life of a police officer and the life of a police family member. Dude, my wife is the best human being I have ever met in my life.
Yep.
She's like the backbone of me, everything that I experience at work, she's always there for me. She always walks me through, and sometimes she's, the person that I just sit next to. Sometimes she's the person that checks me when I need to be checked. Mm-hmm. She's like the balancing.
Exactly.
She's on the seesaw, making sure everything's in the middle where it should be.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mine stops me when I need to be stopped, and she also pushes me when I need a little push out there,
You mentioned something at the very beginning of the podcast about your faith. You said it's something you revisited later in your life. Is that something that's new?
No, I mean, not 100%. I've always had the same belief, but, have I struggled to have that belief sometimes? Sure. We see so much bad. I think that's a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And, I made sure my daughter is wide open to it. She's went through First Communion already. She's done all that. And I'm going to keep her exposed to that, and let her make her own choice in life. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not going to do like my parents did and force you to go all the time, but if she wants to, I'll gladly be right there with her.
There's a middle ground.
There is.
We're at church all the time. Mm-hmm. My wife and I we're either doing stuff for 1078, which is faith-based, or, you know, we're leading a youth group, or we're taking kids to youth camp, or, you know, we're meeting with one of my buddies who's a pastor, or like God is a huge part of our lives. And sometimes I like try to remind myself that my kids just need a break sometimes, you know, like they need to be able to experience life and grow in their, you know, faith on their own, and I can't stuff it down their throat.
That's a big thing, yeah, because I kind of always felt like that when I was a kid, that it was being stuffed down my throat. And, you know, I don't want my daughter to have that same experience, but I want her to be totally open and know what's out there.
I'm trying for my kids to just see God through the things that we, like me and my wife, do. Right. Like I want to be about it, not just talk about it, you know? So like,
yeah, I agree with you.
If I do 1078 and we continue to give to officers and we show, you know, that kind spirit of God, you know, and we show that love of Jesus to the people around us, I'm hoping that my kids pick up on that and they see, okay, well, look at, you know, like there are terrible things that happen in the world. That is true.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but the nature and the character of God is this giving, beautiful thing that just keeps loving and sharing. And, you know, like, so that's my goal, is that they see through 1078 and through, you know, us being at church, through youth group, and that they can see that spirit of God through the things that their parents are doing. So we can take them to church and they can come to church on a Sunday, or maybe they're not feeling it and they miss a Sunday, but God is a part of their everyday life.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
absolutely. Yeah, I do know what you mean.
Has that found, like through your faith, have you found the ability to kind of, for me, God has always been a way for me to put things that I didn't understand in a place. You know, like the bad thing that happened to that guy, like I don't know, you know, what the purpose of that was, or my shooting, it's like I don't know what the purpose of that was, and then 1078 is born from it. Right. Have you found like a sense of relief through your faith that you can like turn to God and put some of that on him?
I don't know if it's as much God for me as it is my family, you know, that I have that sense of, but you know, who provided that family for me? I know God did. So, you know, did he take care of me in that way? Yeah. You know, so he gave me other things to love in life. Yeah. I do believe that 100%. So, you know, if without him providing me that, I wouldn't be who I am today, you know. Yeah.
Like some people see God through relationships, some people see God through nature, some people see God through, you know, giving, or and your way is to thank God for the things for your family and the things that have been put in your life. And
that's right.
That's awesome, man. I love it. It's cool to see a guy that came from the older generation of law enforcement be vulnerable and talk about, you know, this bothered me or that bothered me, and I didn't check this, and it led to this experience in my life. And because a lot of times you get the old guy at work that's so disgruntled and so mad and so pissed off because he's seen negative and evil for the last 30 years. And he's never checked it, and now he's just like this grumpy old stone in the corner.
And he's totally unhappy in everything he does in life. Yeah. And I've seen that.
Yeah, me too.
I have vowed not to be that. Yeah. Let me tell you, I don't care how old I am, I'm not going that road.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I still want to have a good time and enjoy life, you know?
Yeah. I told somebody this the other day, like, being a police officer is inevitably going to change you.
Yeah,
it's going to change the lens that you see the world through. It's going to change how you perceive other people. It's going to. There's nothing that I can do that is not going to allow it to change a portion of me, but it can't change everything about me.
Right, exactly.
It can't change.
And you can't let it change everything about you. Yeah. You have to really work hard to make it not change you.
Yeah,
I didn't realize that for many years, and now that I've learned that, it's my job to make sure that happens, you know?
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. It's the same reason why, you know, we started this whole thing. Is like the job started to change me. You know, I started to not see the same Matt. Right. My wife started to not see the same Matt.
It changes your attitude. It changes your feelings. It changes your perception of the world. And I really realized I was getting into that too. And that's not who I want to be. That's not why I got into this job. Yeah. I got in it to help the people, not to, how shall I say, not regret. I guess, you know, what's the word I'm looking for here? Alienate them. I don't want to alienate the people and, you know, look down upon them because, you know, they're calling me.
Yeah, it's like the same reason why I started this job is to help these people. And then at about the 10 to 11 year mark,
Yeah.
you start to be like, will they stop calling me?
Exactly. Why do you have to be so needy every day?
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Yeah, dude.
you do. You feel like that. And you got to really go, okay, whoa. You're kind of losing sight of who you are and what you wanted to be. You know, you need to take that turn and get back on that track.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it probably took me a
too.
little longer than most to find that, that how hard I need to turn back. But
Yeah, I think that's just a generational thing, man. I think you were born into law enforcement in a generation that did nothing to help you.
right. That's
And
very true.
My goal, my personal goal, and the goal of 1078 is that we end that stigma of like, hey, just suck it up, buttercup.
Right.
And there are moments as a police officer that you got to suck it up,
absolutely,
buttercup.
yes.
But that doesn't mean that, maybe at a later date you kind of process some of the things that you've seen with a counselor or a peer or somebody you can trust. Because in the action part of the job, you got to suck it up.
Oh,
buttercup.
absolutely. Yeah, you got to suck it up in the moment,
Yeah.
but learn how to get rid of it on the backside.
Yeah.
Which is a hard lesson to learn for a lot of guys because, we're all prideful and, we like to think we're all tough and nothing bothers us, but it does.
Yeah, and we use a bunch of terrible ways in order to process the things that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't like have a drink, have two, but you've been a cop a lot longer than I have. I have watched so many men lose everything to booze.
Absolutely.
And it's a way of dealing with trauma, I think, and they just can't find
another way out.
positive outlook.
Yep.
So they just keep burying it underneath the bottle.
Just one more, that's how it goes, and just one more till it's way too much,
Yeah. All right, dude. Well, we'll wrap it up here, man. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You did great. You did.
Thanks.
And your story is insane. Just all the things. It was cool, not cool, to hear all of the things that have happened through 26 years of law enforcement, but from your first shift on your own to 15 years later.
We were talking about it and it started hitting me. I'm not the greatest storyteller. Mike Durkee's the greatest storyteller you ever get.
Yeah.
If you get him on here, you're going to have like a 14-hour episode of roses and rainbows, But
maybe we'll have to have him on, man. I think he
would be great. He would be great.
I would enjoy talking to him.
He would have loved to do it too. I know he would.
He's got like an aura about him.
He does.
He's a pretty awesome dude.
Yeah, he's got that charm thing about him of telling bullshit. Even if it's a lie, you'll believe it and think it's great.
Yeah.
His speech as my best man at the wedding after that shooting, it had everyone in tears and then laughter, It was amazing.
Oh, he did your speech at your wedding?
He was my best man at my wedding, yeah.
No way.
Yeah, that's how tight we are.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. Our wives are friends,
How long was the wedding after the shooting? Did you say
July 10th, and the shooting was June 1st. So just over a month later, yeah. And somehow my wife signed on for that.
You guys are like the white bad boys.
We really were. Yeah, that's everybody used to say that. Yeah. Oh, you got to be gay for each other. Yeah, well, okay, that's fine. Whatever. I can hold my partner's hand.
Yeah.
But literally, when he lived here, we were together at the height of our career. We were together day in and day out, off as well.
Yeah.
If we were off, we were together doing something, riding motorcycles, whatever it was,
Yeah, he's a good dude to have around you.
He is.
He's a good guy that provides balance.
He's fun.
He
can be a pain in the ass, but he's a great fun guy. I love him. Yeah. Still do. And
we'll have to get him on here, man.
Yeah.
I think he has. It's another dude that's been that was in law enforcement forever and has so many different crazy stories.
Yep. Yeah. And just to hear the different side of the same incident would be kind of cool,
I should have had you guys on here together.
Yeah, I thought about that, and I'm like, we probably should have waited and done it together. I thought about that yesterday. I'm like, it'd been kind of cool if we'd have both been here.
Yeah.
But then I wouldn't have got to talk, so,
All right, man, we'll wrap it up. Dude, thanks.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for hanging in there to the end of the episode. I really appreciate you guys listening. One thing that our organization has kind of been struggling with is getting notified of officers who have been involved in officer-involved shootings. One way that we're trying to combat that is if you go to our website, www.1078project.com, you will see that we've added a place for our audience to refer officers. So if you are aware of a police officer who's been involved in an officer-involved shooting, you can go to our website, put in their name, the department that they work for, and as much information as you have about them, whether they have kids, how many kids they have, if they're married. It just helps us design the box to the best of our ability to make sure we're giving them as many resources as we can. Also, if you're trying to support the 1078 project, you can go to our website as well. You can see there's a place where you can buy merch. The Crafty Midwest Mommy has been grateful enough to donate all the proceeds for the t-shirts back to us. So if you're looking for a practical way to get a nice t-shirt and also support the cause, you can go to our website as well for that. And with all that being said, I really appreciate all the support. The podcast is doing much better than I thought it would be doing at this point, and that wouldn't be possible without you guys, our audience. So thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next week. The 1078 Project podcast is proudly sponsored by Deemed Fit. Deemed Fit is an activewear and a leisure company created for first responders. Be a part of their movement to instill confidence, motivation, and a willingness to keep pushing forward. Deemed Fit is a first responder-owned company looking to help first responders and their friends stay as physically and mentally fit as possible. Stay Deemed Fit.